Okay, then we will move into item 7D, and that is approval of an HVAC contract.
Well, it's been a while since we've been in front of the Board of Education regarding an HVAC contract. I think the last time was my first year here when Gary Sartorius and Bob actually had worked on taking out to bid HVAC proposal. And really you need to know that we went out to bid not so much because we were dissatisfied with any service we were getting from Complete Control, but with a desire in these times to maybe try to do things a little bit differently than we have in the past and to try to save some money. So Mr. Stutzman's in the back room. He's did most of the legwork with this, I should say all of the legwork with this. So I'll let him just kind of run through the contract if you're okay with that. Would you see up on the screen up there?
Sure. We had 5 companies submit a proposal to us.
Would you come up here and...
I should.
Sorry. Can you see it okay?
Yes. As you can see, we had 5 companies submit a proposal to us. They all met the deadline and the requirements of what we had asked for is a fairly detailed proposal because it's a fairly large contract. And you can see the bid amounts per hour that were listed, ranked in order there, or not really in order, but ranked by what a journeyman HVAC person gets per hour for that particular company. So Complete Control there is listed first at $91.16 an hour, Train at $98 an hour. That's Winona Heating and Ventilating at $78 an hour, Smith DeRusso at $75 an hour, and then Johnson Control has a number there of $70 an hour. But if you look at the note down below, what they actually did was submitted a blended rate to us, which is the average between what an apprentice they would charge us for an apprentice and what they would charge us for a journeyman. And we felt that really wasn't what we had asked for. We really want to make sure that when work is being done, it's going to be done by a journeyman and not an apprentice. If there is work being done by an apprentice, we expect them to be supervised. That's going to cause our costs to go up because you're going to need 2 people in the district. And so therefore we felt that was really not a valid bid for us for what we asked for and what we needed. So that's kind of where everything shook out. I would just add that kind of what we're doing is to really look seriously at our HVAC costs. And there's really 3 things that we spend money on. One is our preventive maintenance, which is changing filters, belts, lubricating parts, doing those kinds of things. We also get charged for service calls when things break down and need to be repaired. And then the last item is when we choose to do upgrades. We want to do things to make something more energy efficient, or we feel there's better equipment out there that will do it cheaper. What we've done prior to, or all the way up to this point, is we've lumped the service calls and the preventive maintenance together into one lump sum. And I kind of explained to the Board Facilities Committee that that's really kind of like an all-inclusive resort. We threw one number in there and they came and did as much as they could for us for that amount. And in looking at our budgetary needs for the future, we really felt it was important to try to get a handle on really what are we paying for service calls and what are we paying for preventive maintenance. And the only way to do that is to really divide them out, is to separate them. And several other districts do this kind of pay-as-you-go plan per hour. So we're not venturing into uncharted territory. And so if you would approve a vendor this evening, then we would be contracting them for preventive maintenance hours only. We would still look outside for any service calls that we would need. and that might be back to complete control, which is very familiar with our district, or it might be Train or anybody else. It gives us the flexibility to maybe have bids come in if there's time. If there isn't time, we'd probably go with somebody who knew the district and could get our repair done as fast as possible.
We've made some changes over the last, it's going to be 3 to 5 years here, but primarily in the last couple of years with how we contact for service in the district. Typically in the past, it's been if you felt your room was too cold or too warm, you would send an email to Complete Control. Complete Control would then send a service person over to wherever that was in the district in a pretty timely manner, and they would respond to it in one way or another. And what we're trying to do a little bit more of, at least a little bit more deliberate in the last, again, 2 to 3 years, is to filter that and to kind of weed that cost out where we have to pay for that immediate response to a problem in a room. Because what you find in any buildings that are these sizes, and maybe you find it in your home, you may be cool at one time or hot at one time, and then an hour, 2 or 3 hours later, you might be just the opposite of that, or warm. And we see that in the majority of the times that people will call up and say, "What did you do?" Well, we haven't done anything yet. So the system is responding to its environment, and that's not going to be an immediate response. Through the Energy Committee, we've set some district guidelines for temperature ranges, and we're trying to stay as true as we can to those temperature ranges, and we do expect staff to address according to the weather and the temperatures in the room. And if they go below those standards that we've set or ranges, then we expect them to call or send an email to Mr. Stutzman so that we can deal with the issue and try to fix the issue rather than just reacting to it. And that can be accomplished a lot of different ways. So, hopefully that's where you're going to see in that $105,000 why we feel confident that we're able to be able to just focus on the preventive maintenance side, because a lot of that $105,000 was those emails to the previous vendor to have them respond in a very almost immediate to timely response.
That's correct, and the number of our HVAC complaints has gone down substantially, and I wouldn't be standing here if I didn't feel comfortable that we could do this and save some money and not sacrifice comfort at the same time. Because as Mr. Gord is correct, as much as I would love to claim credit for a lot of those fixes, the fact is that when students come into our buildings, they're just a bunch of little heat engines, and they drive up the heat in your room. And it takes the HVAC equipment a little bit of time to catch up to that heat. And so a lot of times in the meantime, the staff member says, "I'm really hot." And by the time we even get a service tech to their room to do anything, in most cases, the HVAC system has responded, done what it needed to do, and brought the room back down to a satisfactory temperature. And it's nobody's fault that that's the way it is. It's just the reality that that's the way it is. So.
And I got to use your story of you and your wife driving to the Twin Cities in a small car, and just the individual differences account for a lot. You could maybe explain it better.
We were driving up there, and I was on the side where the sun was shining in, so I was receiving the solar radiation, and I'm, as my wife likes to say, I'm also well insulated. So I was very hot, and she was freezing, and we're sitting, 2 feet apart from each other. So there's some of that as well, but I really feel that we've educated staff over time, and they are responding, I think, extremely well to our expectations, and certainly some of it's them learning to understand the system too. That it does take time sometimes, and a lot of times I'll just say, well, can you wait? Let me know in 3-4 hours. How is it? And again, almost every time they come back and go, it's much better. Whatever you did was great. And of course I did nothing. So.
And there are certain buildings in the middle school is one of them where we know that in the summer it's going to be hot in the computer labs. You put 25, 30 computers in a computer lab, and you try to air condition that in a room with windows and sun. or in a small confined space, you bring those heat engines in, it's going to be difficult to do that. So some of that over time will hopefully be modified if we replace units, but those are issues. You know, one thing as you're looking at this proposal though, you can see the contract as it is today at $105,000. You know, we're looking at hopefully getting away with about purchasing 800s. And again, I want to emphasize that's for preventive maintenance only. You know, so there's some other things that are changing here. One of them is who they call in the response. So I don't want you to confuse that, you know, we're going to save $40,000 just by making this change. Some of that $40,000 is going to be spent on his salary, taking those phone calls and responding to that. The other parts of those we will be calling, whether that's Smith Druso or Complete Control, to do some follow-up on some of these repairs also, so that'll bite into it. But, you know, we still, having said that, are hoping to see some significant savings in that area. You know, again, it's insurance almost that you're purchasing. You know, you're buying the best insurance plan here. Now we're going to assume some of the risk, and I think we feel more comfortable this year assuming that risk than we did 2 or 3 years ago. At least I think we're getting better educated on how to assume that risk. So that's why we're doing what we're doing at the time we're doing it.
And the contract would be for 800 hours at $75 an hour?
Yes.
That we want.
And if we wouldn't use those 800 hours, we'll be able to roll them over into the next year. And that's important because we haven't separated these two out, we really don't know how many hours we're going to need for preventive maintenance. We may get all done with this and go, we only need 500 hours. Or we may say, boy, we really need 1,000 hours. I don't think that's going to be the case. I'm in talking with Complete Control, the 800 should more than cover it. And I think it's a good place to start.
And if we'd have to purchase more than 800, it's still at that $75.
Correct.
So you would like a motion to approve the Smith DeRusso contract for preventive maintenance at $75 an hour for 800 hours.
Correct.
I make a motion to approve the contract.
Okay, we have a motion and then a second to approve the preventive maintenance contract for 800 hours at $75 per hour submitted by Smith DeRusso. Any further questions, comments?
What does no DDC control work mean?
That's a great question. And certainly some who have been around a long time, like Mr. Grovestein, remember that we used to have Johnson Controls in the district many moons ago, and they had their own unique brand of controls. When we made the switch to Complete Control, what was that, 6-7 years ago, Greg, somewhere in there? When they came on board, they switched all of our direct digital controls, which is what the DDC stands for. They switched it all to their preferred vendor, which is Siemens. And so, and if anybody'd like to look after the meeting, I can take you down the hallway and show you these fancy little boxes that actually run the computer programs for us to allow us to control everything. Siemens is pretty territorial, and in other words, I've already contacted them and asked them if we could purchase direct from them or who's another vendor in the area we should consider, and there really isn't any. So our hands are tied a little bit in the fact of if you want to make a total switch to somebody for digital controls, we'd have to switch out all of those controls. And I'm not comfortable at this time to tell you to do that. They're working fine, but it's the case where that's where we would have to call in Complete Control if we have an issue with our digital controls. Because Smith DeRusso or any of those other ones as well probably aren't going to be able to address those issues.
And if we were to do that, like we did the last bid, you would see that contract would be significantly higher because they're not bringing in all that equipment like Complete Control did without any additional cost. So the cost of replacing those controllers and that work is going to drive those prices up too.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? We can do a roll call vote on that also.
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
And Deb?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, and thank you both for looking into that, and the facility committee. It really makes a lot of sense, the way you're approaching it.
Well, these are all, there's no guarantees, but we feel pretty confident about this. Everything we're doing with the budgets and things and trying to do more with less, which is the buzzword now. There's never a guarantee that that's actually going to happen, so, but we feel pretty confident.
Well, the approach that you're taking, though, just looks really good. I think you can tell a lot more of what's going on with each of your buildings and each of your items that you're looking at if you have a better idea of the maintenance that's done versus the calls that are done, and so it makes sense.
I think Dave and Greg and the rest of the team have worked really hard on really identifying, what's working well, what isn't, and putting together the budget in relation to that to make sure that we are trying to cut some costs, but also moving forward with better equipment, so that in the long run, we are saving money and
Yeah,
energy.
and I think that's a great point, Judy, that you're bringing up. None of this is getting done at the expense of our buildings and our facilities.
Right.
Any improvements and we look at this as an improvement. We're not doing something to save money here. We're doing something to improve the system, and just coincidentally, we're going to be able to save some dollars by doing that. So, I have been to a lot of facilities this year, and I'm very proud to be able to come to this district and work and be able to take a ball that was carried by a lot of people before me and continue that. So we definitely don't want to go backwards at this point in time, because it will cost money in the end.
Well, I think we've all appreciated that work that's gone into this, and the maintenance of our buildings and everything involved with that is very important to the district as a whole. It just is. It keeps us able to spend the money in other places, and it also just keeps us refining our processes so we're doing the best job we can.
And I would point out too that it does impact student learning. If kids are not able to learn in an environment that's clean and safe and healthy, that's going to have an impact. So it's important to have facilities that are taken care of very well. Greg and his team are certainly doing that.
Thank you very much.